Kicking off our Week 1 wraparound, we're going to start with the Houston Cougars taking on the Oklahoma Sooners. And for Houston in this ball game, I think they have to remain good versus the run. This was one element of their game last year where they excelled. They were very stout versus the run, and they faced two outstanding tailbacks in this ball game in Samaje Perine and Joe Mixon. If they can make Oklahoma one-dimensional, it goes a long way in helping these guys win the game. And you look at Duke Catalon, their new tailback that transferred from Texas. If they're going to have any chance in this ball game, you want to have Catalon get going early along with Greg Ward. We know Ward can run the football, and he's going to create major opportunities for Catalon. If they can have that balance offensively, they're very tough to beat. You don't want to give Baker Mayfield second chances in the passing game. If you have him cornered, keep him within that pocket and make him go to his first or second read, but don't allow him to get outside of the pocket and create things on the move. That's where Tennessee got in trouble last year, and that's where Houston can get in trouble in this game if they allow him to do so. And for Oklahoma in this ball game, it's about making Greg Ward beat you from the pocket. You want to take away one element of his game, which is his legs, and force him to be a complete pocket passer in this contest. And it's up to Oklahoma to make plays in space defensively. Houston does a great job in spreading the field. And if you can't make plays in space defensively, you're going to struggle. And I think they also have to be ready to play multiple games. To talk about maybe Houston comes in and tries to run the football down their throat. They're going to spread the field. They're going to try to play up-tempo. You have to be able defensively to play multiple games versus the Cougars. Otherwise, you'll end up losing this ball game. I like the Sooners in this ball game. Quite honestly, I think Oklahoma is a well-balanced offensive attack. They have two outstanding tailbacks that can do damage on the ground and also in the passing game. And you have Baker Mayfield, the outstanding quarterback. I know Houston has a great quarterback in Greg Ward, but when you go over to the defensive side of football, I think Oklahoma up front will be able to contain Ward and force these guys to be one-dimensional. I see the Sooners winning a very entertaining matchup versus the Cougars. Next up, we have UCLA taking on Texas A&M, and for the Bruins in this ball game, I'm interested to see Eddie Vanderdoes' impact in this ball game. If you want to stop the spread offense of Texas A&M, the pressure has to come from within, and Vanderdoes is one of the best in the country. Another matchup I'm going to be interested in watching is between their left tackle, Connor McDermott, and defensive end Myles Garrett. That's a pro versus pro matchup, and a lot of NFL scouts will be interested in that battle as well. And quarterback Josh Rosen's progression in year 2. He was outstanding last year as a true freshman. How much has his game grown over a year, and what can he bring to the table to help the UCLA Bruins get over the hump and get back in contention for the Pac-12 title? Moving over to Texas A&M in this ball game, I think it's going to be perimeter football. We know the Aggies can go 4 and sometimes 5 wide with their receiver set, and how they match up versus the defensive backs of UCLA will be something that you should watch in this ball game. We know about guys like Kristen Kirk, Ricky Seals-Jones, Speedy Noyle. Can UCLA match up versus this set will be key in this ball game. And I would say a lot of draws, a lot of traps in this running game with James White and Keith Ford. The A&M Aggies do a great job of spreading you out to run the football. They don't have to run it a lot, but when they do, it's very effective, and they have two outstanding talents in White and Ford. I believe they have to play winning special teams. We know their defense may not be as effective as we've seen it before. However, if they can win the special teams battle, they have the outstanding returner in this ball game in Kirk. It goes a long way in helping these guys win the game. And that's what I think will happen in this game. I like Texas A&M to knock off UCLA, and I think what will be the surprise is how well the Aggies play on the defensive side of football. I'm picking Texas A&M. Big battle at Lambeau Field between LSU and Wisconsin, and some keys to victory for both teams. Starting with LSU, Brandon Harris's efficiency in the passing game will be huge, not only in this game, but for the rest of the season. We know they're going to rely heavily on the legs of Leonard Fournette, but if Harris can bring some semblance of balance to this offense, they're going to be very tough to beat. And LSU has to win the battle in the trenches. This is mostly for the defensive side of the ball. They're a little bit lighter up front defensively as opposed to what you see juxtaposed to them with Wisconsin and that offensive wall they have up front. If they can't own the line of scrimmage, they're going to struggle to try to get these guys off the field. And Colin Jeters's role in the running game will be key for LSU. They don't throw to the tight end often, but how can he be effective in the running game is going to determine how well they can run the football versus a very tough front seven of Wisconsin. Moving over to Wisconsin in this ball game, you look at nose tackle Olive Sakopoulos' impact can be huge. When you look at the 3-4 defense, I think the most important player is the nose tackle. And if he can win this battle up front versus LSU's center, I think that's going to derail the Tigers' ground game, which would then put them in bad situations. I also look at the fact that Wisconsin utilizes their tight ends very well on both ends of offense, in the running game department and also as a receiver. So getting guys like Troy Fumagalli and Kyle Peniston involved early and often, I think they can exploit matchups that they have at the advantage in versus those Tiger linebackers and strong safeties. I also look at 4 quarters of pressure. That's blitzing, pressure on the outside with those wide receivers, tempo on offense, utilizing screens to diffuse that LSU pressure. If they can have 4 quarters of pressure, it's going to make LSU get out of their tendencies, which is the win, I believe, for Wisconsin. I'm going with the Tigers in this ballgame. I think what you'll see offensively this game for LSU is a well-balanced offensive attack. I do think the passing game will come ready to play. Defensively, Dave Aranda's impact on this defense will be huge. He has Arden Key. He has Kendall Beckwith. He has a ton of athletes within the front seven. I think those guys will cause a lot of problems for that Badgers offense. Big time matchup here between USC and Alabama, and for USC in this ball game, it's about winning the one-on-one matchups on the outside. You look at guys like Juju Smith-Schuster, Darius Rogers, the transfer tight end Tyler McNamara. If those guys can win those one-on-one matchups outside versus Alabama, I think they have a great chance in knocking off the Crimson Tide. Adoree Jackson versus Calvin Ridley. Again, it's about winning matchups on the outside. Their outstanding dual threat player in Jackson matching up versus Alabama's #1 wide receiver. That's a strength versus strength battle. Jackson has to win that matchup throughout the contest. They have to keep Alabama spread out. You want to utilize those athletes that you have on offense, spread the field, and work those individual matchups. Again, it's about perimeter play when you're taking on Alabama. I think USC has the talent to make this a very interesting game. And for the Tide in this ball game, the biggest matchup that I'm going to be interested in watching, and most NFL scouts will be looking at, is between outside linebacker Tim Williams, their best pass rusher, going against arguably the best tackle in college football, and Zach Banner. That's a matchup Williams has to win if the Tide wants to upset or frustrate this Trojans offensive attack. I look at Cooper Bateman handling pressure. He's going to be the starter in this ball game. If he can handle the pressure of being the starter against USC, against that pressure that they're going to send, it helps Alabama out in the long run. I think they also have to shrink this ball game. We know that's one thing Alabama does an exceptional job in, and that's shrinking a game, which means running the football, taking your timely shots deep down the field, operating off play action, not trying to take too much of what the defense gives you, but take just enough to where you can keep this offense on pace and chew up the TOP. If they can shrink this ball game, it minimizes USC's opportunity to take advantage of those spread formations and those individual matchups on the outside. So Alabama has to make this a slow-paced ball game if they want to win. I like Alabama in this ball game. I think the one thing you can't simulate in practice is live action, and how well can you handle adversity. And I do think both quarterbacks will face that in this game, but I look at Alabama's defense and that downward pressure that they bring down in, down out. I don't think Max Brown is ready for that just yet, especially in the opening week. So I do think Alabama's defense will be the reason why they knock off the Trojans. In a rematch of last year, we have two outstanding programs facing off in Week 1, Notre Dame and Texas. And for the Fighting Irish in this ball game, Deshaun Kaiser, the outstanding quarterback, has to learn to live to play another down. We saw this last year a lot. He's a tremendous talent, and when you're a great playmaker and a game changer, it's your natural inclination to try to do something extra outside of the framework of the original play, but you have to learn to take what the defense gives you. The incomplete pass is okay. The check down is okay. If he can do that, he's going to make tremendous strides this year as a quarterback. And I also believe defensively it's up to Notre Dame to rattle the freshman QB of Texas, Shane Buechele. If they can rattle the freshman, despite the fact that they're replacing a lot of guys defensively, a lot of key stars defensively, it's up to them to frustrate him, not allow him to get comfortable in this game. If they can do that, they can win this contest. And also Notre Dame has to kick their way to victory. I do believe they have the advantage in the special teams department from a kicking and punting perspective. If they can force Texas to drive them to the field, and on offense, if they can't get it in the end zone, chip away with threes, Notre Dame has a great chance to knock off Texas. Moving over to Texas in this ball game, I think they have to spread it out to run the football. They can neutralize the box and take advantage of their individual matchups that they have up front with their offensive line against a weakened defensive front of Notre Dame. Spread the field, run the ball with that trio of talented tailbacks that they have at their disposal. They also have to avoid the shootout. I believe Notre Dame wants to make this a track meet. They want to play up tempo. They want to make this a point-for-point game. Texas has to avoid the temptation, shrink the ball game, force Notre Dame to drop them to the field each and every time, and that's how they have a great chance to win. They also have to play with controlled aggression. I think when you look at their defense, they're very talented. They were a young team last year. Now they're more experienced, and they have to play with controlled aggressiveness because Notre Dame will hit them with screens. If they get out of position because of their aggressiveness, Deshaun Kaiser is a guy that can make them pay with his legs, so they have to play with control if they want to have a chance. I like the Longhorns in this ball game. Last year, Texas played a lot of freshmen. They were a young football team, inexperienced, and made a lot of mistakes. This year, they're a veteran group, very talented on defense and along the line of scrimmage, both of which I think will be the reason why they knock off Notre Dame. And finally, we have Ole Miss taking on Florida State in another big matchup this weekend. And when you look at Ole Miss in this ball game, they have to work to achieve balance. I know they want to feature Chad Kelly in that outstanding passing attack, but their running game will play a huge role in whether or not they can win or lose versus Florida State. Now, I also believe they have to maintain gap discipline versus Dalvin Cook. He's an outstanding runner that sees the entire field. And if you're out of position, especially with the gap responsibilities, he'll cut it back and bring it to the house. And again, don't try to win the Heisman tonight. If you're Chad Kelly, play within yourself, play within your offense. You're a great dual threat quarterback. Don't try to do too much. Keep your offense in positive situations, and you can have a chance to knock off Florida State. Moving over to the Seminoles in this ball game, how will they match up versus Ole Miss's outstanding tight end Evan Ingram, whether it's safety Derwin James or linebacker Trey Marshall? Whomever draws that matchup versus Ingram has to win that battle. He's a big piece of their passing game. And now that you're starting DeAndre Francois, don't handcuff the freshman quarterback. He's been there last year. He's been there all summer, all spring. Give him the entire offense. Allow him to work within himself and make plays for your team. Don't handcuff him and rely heavily on Dalvin Cook, because that plays right into the hands of what Ole Miss wants you to do. And I think Florida State has to win above the rim. Ole Miss does a great job in attacking down the sideline, down the rail. They'll throw those 50-50 balls to those outstanding wide receivers. If they can't win those matchups one-on-one on the outside, they could struggle. I like Florida State in this ball game. I think the balance that they have offensively is going to be underrated. I like DeAndre Francois and what he brings to the table from a dual threat perspective, but they do have the best player in this game, I believe, in Dalvin Cook, the outstanding tailback. Defensively, they will be able to match up on the outside versus Ole Miss's receivers. They possess the same size and strength and athleticism that those receivers have. So I look for Florida State to win a well-contested ball game but come away victorious.